This episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast is brought to you by Therapynotes, therapynotes.com, and also the Google Workspace for Therapists course. Again, you can find that at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 168 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Gordon Brewer. Glad you've joined me for the podcast. And if this is your first time listening to us, welcome. Glad you've discovered us and hope you'll come back for more. And for those of you that have been listening for a while, glad you're with me on this journey. Glad you're here. I hope you're having a good, almost springtime. I know I am thankful that we're in March already. And I know here in Northeast Tennessee, where I'm starting to see the telltale signs of spring, particularly when you go outside and the air is still very cool and we're still getting down into below freezing at night. But I'm hearing the peepers out there, the frogs that are doing their little springtime nuptials, if you will. And so I'm glad that they are there, and that's just a good sign that spring's about to start. So I digress, talking about the sex life of frogs. But anyway, glad you're with me for this particular episode. I'm looking forward to you hearing from our guest today, Lisa Mustard. Lisa is a great person to get to know, and I'm real excited about what she is doing, which I think is pretty unique in that she is offering Podcourses. One of the things that I do is part of my morning ritual and part of my morning routine is I'm usually out walking in the mornings. There's a green belt close to us, and it's just a way for me to kind of start the day and do some meditation and just walk and take in nature and all that sort of thing. But I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I know that this past year, one of the things that I've done in order to get my continuing education credits, let's see if I can get my tongue to work, is to be able to listen to some courses online and then get CE credits for that. Well, Lisa has built an entire business around that. And so I want you to learn from her, because I think she offers another great way to think about diversifying your income in your practice, which is an important piece for a lot of us. I know that has been real important to me in my practice, is just having other streams of income other than just the one-to-one therapy or just the doing therapy exclusively. So we'll get to Lisa here in just a minute. And speaking of podcasts, this is just kind of a little side note or a little detour here. One podcast I would love to recommend to you that I started listening to this past week. And I think just looking back over this past year and just all that we've gone through with really being hopefully much more aware of racism in our country and Black Lives Matter and all of those things that we've experienced. There's one that I stumbled upon, and it's only on Spotify, I believe. So if you don't have Spotify, you might not be able to access this, but it's called Renegades. And it is a podcast that is a conversation between Bruce Springsteen and President Barack Obama. And it is just fascinating, and I just can't stop listening to it. So wanted to put in a plug for that because it's an excellent podcast. And I think it just speaks volumes to what a lot of us have experienced over this last year and continue to need to give voice to. And that is just racism in our country and doing what we need to do to end racism. So anyway, wanted to put in a quick plug about that. Also, I wanted to mention again the Google Workspace for Therapists course. I'm still having trouble with the name because they changed it on me. But anyway, the name G Suite has gone away. For those of you that have been listening for a while, have heard me talk about G Suite for Therapists. Well, I've changed the name of the course, and it's now called Google Workspace for Therapists because Google has changed all their branding around that. But anyway, I'm in the process of putting together all the updates to that particular course. The course has been out now for about 2 years, and I've got hundreds of people that have enrolled in the course, and the feedback I get is very helpful. So I'm updating that. And if you enroll now, you get the updates live. So I'm going through just kind of systematically updating each module of that. And, what I would encourage you to do is go ahead and enroll now, because once I get all the updates in place, the price is going to go up. And so currently you can still get it at the original price of just $98. And it's over 6 hours of instruction on using the tools of Google Workspace in your practice. And you can really set that up to be a platform that you use in running your practice. It's also can be made HIPAA secure. And so all of that is contained in the course. And so if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course, I haven't changed the URL yet, but just go over and check it out and be able to get it at the original price. So again, practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course, and check it out and enroll. Also, before we get to Lisa, I'd like for you to be sure and check out our sponsor for the podcast, and that is Therapynotes, therapynotes.com. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They are who I use in my practice. They have a patient portal that is second to none. They also have telehealth available within that portal. Therapynotes will send out appointment reminders. It will give you a platform for your documentation, filing insurance claims, all of those things that we need on the clinical side of our practices. Therapynotes is my go-to for that. Been using them now for a little over 2 years, and their support is second to none as well. So be sure and check them out, therapynotes.com. And if you'll use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months of their services at no cost, no extra cost to you. In other words, you can try them for free. Don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, be sure to check them out, therapynotes.com. And so now, without further ado, here is Lisa Mustard. Sorry for my bantering today, but I'm just going to leave this in here. So anyway, looking forward to you hearing from Lisa and our conversation about how she has started Podcourses. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so happy for you to get to know Lisa Mustard. Lisa, welcome.
Thanks, Gordon. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And before we started recording, I was just catching up with Lisa, and she is doing some exciting stuff that I think is going to be interesting to people, just around being able to kind of move outside the therapy space. And I know that's been a theme really a good bit this last year, because I think a lot of us were realizing just during the COVID pandemic and all of that we wanted to find other ways to kind of create income for ourselves and really go from the one-to-one way of doing stuff to the one-to-many. Right. So Lisa, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit about your journey and how you've landed where you landed.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm excited to be here. I know I've said that a couple of times, and I really, truly am, because I love to connect with other therapists and, learn more about what their goals are. And if I can be of any support of anybody, I'm such a huge advocate for our field and helping our peers reach their goals. So a few years ago, well, I've been in LMFT since, let me count back, since 2006. That's when I got my license. I think that's when I got my license. And over the course of doing this work, I've worked in a college counseling center. That's where I cut my teeth. I went to an addictions recovery center. I was a family therapist there. And then about 10 years ago, I found my home working with the military. And I've had a number of different titles over the past 10 years of working with the military. But most recently, I work for a military branch here in South Carolina, primarily with soldiers and service members and their families, helping them with deployment-related issues. Wow. And yeah, really love this work. Yet at the same time, it's high tempo. There's a lot of expectations. I joke around all the time that I'm not in the military, but sometimes I feel like I am just because of the way that what the expectations are. And about 2.5 years ago, I was really questioning, do I want to keep doing this work? I was burning out. I was burning the wick at both ends. And I kind of had this crossroad moment of, gosh, is this what I want to keep doing? And I have 2 daughters. I'm married, and I found myself just being pulled to do more work for my job, and that boundary of self-care and was kind of just really difficult for me. And I just was curious, like, well, what else is out there for me as a therapist to do? And at the same time, I attended a regional conference here in South Carolina, an incredible regional conference, the Lowcountry Mental Health Conference, where they bring fabulous speakers, presenters. It's, 2 full days of all kinds of continuing education. And I had this moment. I was sitting in this gorgeous auditorium down in Charleston, and I was looking around the room, and it was like there was 3 separate groups in the room. There was, I call them, Gordon, I don't know if you experience this, but like the old guard, the master therapists who have their notepad out and their pencil, and they're just taking all these notes, and they're just glued to the presenter. Those are like the master therapists that have been doing this work for a while, that when they talk, we listen, right? We're like, well, what is so-and-so going to say about this? And then I looked around the room and I saw folks like me, Gen X, just kind of sitting there. My phone was in my lap. I was curious about the person sitting next to me. I was just looking to connect with people and make conversation and see. And then there's that third group in the room, the millennials. And I know you guys can't see me, but Gordon can. They were all glued to their phones. They weren't looking, they weren't talking to their neighbors. They were just like in their own bubble on their phone. And I thought, wow, if that's not to me, it was just like this statement of our time and where we are as a profession. And I got really curious about this whole idea of being on your phone. And well, what if these speakers were in their phone? Would they be more apt to want to pay attention? Would they be more interested in learning more? And at the same time, I don't know about you, but I sit a lot for my work. I sit so much. And I was like, I'm so tired of sitting. Like, I don't want to sit in this auditorium for the next 6 hours. How cool would it be if I could just walk around downtown Charleston and, experience Charleston and still also get best of both worlds? So that's where the idea of taking continuing education to my earbuds really kind of came alive for me. And so, I just started getting really curious about what's the process. Is that even doable? Is anybody doing it?
Right.
And so I just started to look around, and it reignited my excitement for the work that I do. So it was kind of like I had this idea, but it also helped me kind of get excited about being a therapist again, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a common story, because I know I've been doing it a little while. I'm not going to tell which group I would have been in that room, but yeah, I think it's, and I totally get it, because I've been to so many conferences and just sitting there. And probably like you, Lisa, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's really quality time for me. In fact, during COVID, I listened to, did a whole continuing education course. It was actually a video course, but I was able to listen to it on audio, and it was just as beneficial. I mean, I got the same stuff. I didn't get to see the PowerPoints as they were coming up, but I got it. And so it's a brilliant idea. So I love that. So what have you learned so far about doing stuff in this way?
Yeah, well, I've learned that, when COVID hit, so let me back it up and just say that I first got my provider status in South Carolina. So I went to my board first and just said, what is my board here in the state? What do I need to do? Because I felt like if I could just go through that process, it would become a lot clearer to me what I needed to do and how I needed to present this. So that's really where I got started. And then it's been a year. So in 2020, January 2020, I put together my packet and sent it off to NBCC. And I had a few people tell me it takes a couple months for them to approve you. Well, because of COVID, it took them 9 to 10 months for them to get back to me. And I almost just said, forget it. Like, it's not going to happen. COVID is just too crazy. And I think I started to doubt myself and my abilities, and that imposter syndrome kicked in. And my husband was like, are you kidding me? You've put so much time and energy into this. You have to see this through, no matter how long it takes for NBCC to get back to you. And it's like the second he said that, I think a week later, I got the email from NBCC saying you've been approved. And then since then, I've just been trying, I still work full time. So creating having the interview and creating that is really fun for me. I don't have an issue with that in terms of time. It's more the work that goes into it afterwards. You have to go through it, and you have to make sure it's a certain amount of minutes for it to be 1 clock hour. You have to create the self-study quiz. You have to have the evaluation, and then creating the certificate. A lot of that was like what we did as we were waiting for the NBCC provider approval to come through. It was like really getting my website. What learning system am I going to use? Because I know what the NBCC needs for me to do. So what's the best learning management system? And just all that techie stuff that makes my head want to explode. I had to hire somebody to help me with that. And then it's been just creating more courses. What do people want to learn about? And in the beginning, I just kind of reached out to people who I knew personally that were experts in their field and said, hey, would you want to throw together 3 to 5 objectives? I'll interview you. We'll cover all this and I'll just do the rest, and I'll pay you a small fee. And they were like, sure, I'll help you out. Now I'm getting to the point where it's like, okay, what else is out there? How do I tackle things like application of theory in a podcast, right? How do I do that? So I'm getting some requests for things like that. I'm also getting requests for continuing education on practice building, or like things outside of therapy. But for folks who are in private practice, they want to know, can I get credit for listening to this? And so I have to go in and look at the NBCC, requirements for a thing. I said, yes, okay, this can fit in here. So who do I know that can talk about this? And we can create a CEU around it.
Wow.
So it's been really fun. I mean, I really enjoy it.
Wow. That's amazing. With the NBCC, getting those credentials or whatever you call it, how hard was that process? I know it was a waiting game, but was it the application complicated?
So that's a really good question. Is it complicated? I guess it depends on how you define complicated, really, because let's say you already have a course already created. It's okay. You look at how NBCC needs your course to fit their model. So you can, if you already have a course, you can just look at it and retool it or refigure it out and kind of meet their requirements. If you're brand new to this, then it might be a little bit easier because you can look at what they need for it to have, and you can kind of, go from there. I would say the most challenging part was making sure that what they needed for me to be approved was on my website, and I had everything. It's a lot of that. Like, are your T's crossed? Are your I's dotted? Is it consistent across the board? Does your evaluation survey meet what they need it to meet? They pretty much tell you what you need to have on there, but they work with you. They'll work with you to help you massage it to get it to where it needs to be. I'll tell you honestly, the hardest part is going to be the marketing. Like when you create something, it's like, okay, now that I have this, how do I get it in front of our peers? How do I get them to see that this is out there? So that's been probably the biggest challenge for me.
Right. Well, I think, one of the things about those different processes, because it's similar in a way to getting credentialed with insurance companies. If you're a provider that wants to be credentialed with insurance providers, it's a lot of stuff you have to do, a lot of paperwork you have to fill out, all of that sort of thing. I'm just, I'm thinking, why can't they make this simpler or whatever? But it's not, and I need to accept that. But one of the things it sounds like you've learned, Lisa, is just the payoff of that, of just being persistent and consistent with going through the process. I mean, it's a long process, but you just fill it out. It's the licensure, everything that we do with certification and licensure and all that sort of thing. It's just a lot of documentation stuff. And I think a lot of people shy away from it because they think, oh, it's too much, but it is a lot, but just doing a little bit at a time gets you there. So,
yeah, that's so true. You're right. I forgot about all that documentation we had to do to get our license, all the forms you have to fill out. You're right. It's a similar process, and it's a very similar mindset. Just keep going. Just keep swimming.
Right. So what are you finding with the requests of people of things that they're interested in with continuing education?
Yeah, I think it's such a variety, because I have folks who are seasoned clinicians, like you, who've been in this field for a while. And, honestly, once you've been doing this for a while, sometimes it feels like check the box. Like, okay, I need CEUs. I don't really want another certification. I'm good. I don't need to go into 3 days of EMDR, or I don't necessarily want to become an EFT certified, therapist, because I've already got my niche. So a lot of the times it's, I have to check the box kind of feeling. So I understand that, like, I have to do that too, but I also am drawn to things or education that is energetic and fun. I think back to the in-person live events that I've been to, and the ones that stand out the most had, like, the presenters just were full of energy. They give great examples. They were easy to interact with, and you could ask questions, and you felt like you walked away with, like, oh, I have knowledge. So honestly, that's what I aim to bring. And it can be anything from using meditation and Ayurveda, life coaching in your practice, to an overview of eating disorders. So I have one on there that's about, like, self-care for therapists. And then I'm working on some right now that one is an overview of addiction and treatment models. And then the next one, actually, that I'll be working on is a hypnotherapy one, as well as going back to private practice and, like, how to bookkeeping for therapists. So I'm really kind of just tapping into a lot of different requests more than anything. I feel like nothing's off limit, as long as it bodes well for the earbuds, then I'll bring it, because somebody's going to be interested. And I'm always taking requests too. So folks can reach out to me and let me know what they feel would be helpful. I'm always, because you've got the new therapists who need the CEUs, and then you've got, like, the master therapists who may not even know how to listen to a podcast, right? So like, and everybody in between so it's hard to know, but I'm very much about taking requests and what would you find helpful and useful?
Right. Well, that's great. And, you said something earlier that I wanted to come back to, which I think is an important point. And that's around imposter syndrome. I think a lot of times people think, well, I'm not that master therapist. I don't have the credentials. I don't have the whatever after my name to qualify me for doing continuing education. You want to speak to that a bit?
Yes, I do, because that is me every single day. Every single day I think, well, who am I to do this? And I want you guys to know that part of the reason I don't present the information is because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to go and research a topic and to be the expert and then to present it. And it would be even more work than it would be to find the people that are the experts. And so I like to use my strengths when it comes to things like this. And I recently redid the Gallup poll strength finder. I don't know if you've taken that.
No, I've not.
Yeah. And turns out I'm really good at connecting with people and achieving things. So for me, that really spoke well, because I love to connect with people. I love to listen. I think that's what makes me a great therapist. And I love to help other people shine their light. So I'm looking for those people that are the experts that want to get out there and shine their light and share what they know. Of course, we make sure that everything that they're presenting is research-based and we've got the references. But so when I come from that place of, I just need to be the conduit of the information, not so much the expert. The imposter syndrome tends to go to the back burner. Don't get me wrong. I have imposter syndrome every single time I hit record. I go, oh my gosh, do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Do I sound like I have I'm worried people are going to think that I don't have a broad enough vocabulary, or I don't have the exact psychological term for that. But then I go back to, Lisa, over the past, how many years you've been a therapist, you've helped so many people, and people walk away from sessions with you saying, I feel better, or I can do this. That I just have to tap into. I've had experience in success in other areas. It's just going to take me some time to be better at what I do with this. I don't know about you, but did you remember that first time you sat with a family, or the first time you sat with a client? Did you think you were going to throw up or what? Like,
oh yeah.
So I just think about like, okay, I've come so far. I can do hard things. I have enough, feathers in my cap that I can do hard things. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can take myself down like that. I've gotten feedback that over the years, I've just learned to take it as feedback, not so much. And I think that's part of it too, is if you want to try something different, you have to try new things. And I tried private practice, Gordon, and it's not for me, and I know that's your listener base that's what it's all about. And I felt kind of like a failure that private practice, I couldn't or didn't want to do it. And that's my own reasons, but I love the podcasting. So I just tell everybody, imposter syndrome is going to kick in, but look at your strengths and really hone in on your strengths, because when you can amplify your strengths, that's where the magic happens, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's you're exactly right. Private practice isn't for everyone. And we could do a whole episode on that, and maybe we will. But I think one of the things that we do, and we've experienced this with our clients as well, is that we have kind of this internal critic that takes over. And we can tend to listen to that too much, rather than just to dismiss that and really recognize that, you've got, most of us in this space, we've got at least a college, bachelor's degree, or, the majority of, therapists are master's level or better. And so you've got the knowledge and you've got that experience does help. You just learn through life, the hard knocks of life and all of that. And so don't necessarily get caught in that trap.
Yeah. And I can take myself down in a second, listening to other therapists out there with their podcasts, and I can play that comparison game, just like, so I have to okay, don't go there. Don't go there. It's okay.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I've struggled with as well, is just, not getting caught up in that comparison game. And I remember, I forget, it was a podcast, I'm sure I was listening to, somebody saying, never compare your beginning point to somebody else's middle point.
Right.
Because at one point they were at the beginning point as well. Yep. And so, everybody starts at the beginning. And so, and so it's, and you're going to make mistakes. That's how we learn. I mean, just think of mistakes as, I try to think of mistakes as in some ways a triumph, because that's something I learned from, and okay, I need to go another way to get to this. So,
almost like fail faster, fail fast, because you have to, that's where you learn. That's where you grow is in those failures. And, I think back, and maybe you do this too. Like I listen to like my earlier episodes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but I don't take them down and I don't redo them, because I think it's everybody's. And I know that in a year from now, I'm probably going to listen to the episodes from 2021 and be like, oh my gosh. Right. But I think you gotta start somewhere. Like you said, you're going to be a beginner always in something new.
Sure. Yeah. So Lisa, tell folks about your podcast and kind of the format of how they get the CEUs and all of that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes. So anytime, well, first of all, if you, my show is called The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I think it's pretty much on every platform. All of my episodes are free, so you can listen to the content all of it's free. If you decide that you like, so I have right now, I have 5, almost coming up this week, I should have a 6th pod course up there. If you go to my website and you click on Podcourses, you'll see what is available. But like I said, you can listen to the information for free. Like I'm not keeping it behind a paywall. Anybody can listen. If you decide that you like it and you want to get the contact hour, then you click purchase and then you go through, you have to take a self-study survey, you do an evaluation, and then you can download your certificate of completion. And I am giving away the first one for free. So anybody can go to my site, you can sign up and get your first contact hour and NBCC for free. You can get it. But besides that, besides the pod courses, I do interviews with, I say, cool and interesting people in the world, in the field of mental health, and those who aren't therapists who provide value to our profession.
Right.
So for example, I mean, some of my guests in the past have been, everybody's probably knows Lori Gottlieb. I've had her on the show. That was a really cool interview. I was total fangirl on that one. It's probably sound like the biggest. I was so nervous and excited at the same time because I just love her book and I think the world of her. And I told her on the show, I was like, your book actually helped renew my excitement for this work. So I have I also interview, so who else is on there? That's Richard Lang, who actually is a therapist in the UK. He is big on his way of viewing the world is called the Headless Way. And my husband introduced me to Richard Lang. I didn't know anything about the Headless Way. And he discovered him because of Sam Harris and his Waking Up app. And I love that interview. It's really unique. It's very different. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but really Richard helps you view the world. It kind of like helps you kind of like get perspective on the world. And then I just recently interviewed William B. Irvin, who he writes about Stoicism. So his name is, he goes by Bill. He's not a therapist, but he talks a lot in his books about a philosophy of life. And I think that applies to, well, pretty much any human. But I like to bring on folks that kind of, a lot of what they do necessarily isn't therapy, but it applies to our profession. I'm kind of a self-proclaimed personal development junkie. So, I will like read anything pretty much and check it out. And so I veer towards those things. I've also had other, folks on who have podcasts. And I would love to have you on my show if you would be open to coming on. You can talk about what you do. So, I'm trying to think who else has been on the show. And then I did like this so while I was waiting for my NBCC provider thing to come through, I was kind of going through this, like, is it going to happen? Should I keep doing these pod courses or do I wait? I kind of veered for a little bit and did a couple episodes. I call them midlife magic episodes, where I just talk about, because that's me. So I just talk a little bit about midlife issues. And that was really fun to kind of veer a little bit.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd love to sit down with you and your husband and have some coffee or a glass of whiskey or something like that. And just talk about this stuff, because that's right up my alley. So yeah. Awesome.
Well, you're in Tennessee, right?
Yes, I am.
Where are you in Tennessee again?
I'm in Northeast Tennessee, which is up near where North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia touch.
Okay.
So yeah,
we're not too far.
Yeah, not too far at all.
Yeah.
South Carolina is the closest beaches to us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if you ever come through, you better let me know. I would love that.
Okay. We'll do it.
Same here.
We'll do it. Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Yeah. So, well, Lisa, tell folks how they can get in touch with you. I want to be respectful of your time and yeah.
Well, I mean, you can go to my website, lisamustard.com. You can reach me there. You can send me an email, hello@lisamustard.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. Where else can you find me? Pretty much those 2 places are probably where folks can reach me.
Yeah, and we'll have links in the show summary and the show notes, so people can click on it and find you. And so, well, Lisa, I'm so glad we connected, and I'm sure we'll be talking again. This is really interesting stuff, and I think it's going to really speak to a lot of people's just thinking about, okay, besides doing therapy, what else could I do with my expertise? So
yeah.
So all right, thanks for being here, Lisa. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Lisa Mustard, and I'm so glad she was on the podcast. I just love her idea of what she's done, and really done something that's very unique and outside the box, in just creating a diversity of income for her practice and what she's doing. And also just really focusing in on something that is not necessarily therapy related, but really the training of therapists, and really helping people connect with other people that are offering continuing education. And it's a brilliant idea that she's come up with around creating Podcourses. So be sure and check her out. Again, her URL is lisamustard.com. And she's got a great list of courses there. I was looking at it before I was recording this, and she's got just a lot of great ways to get some extra CEs, and also just learn from her and what she's doing with her business model. Also, Lisa has invited me to be on her podcast, so I'm looking forward to that. I think that's coming up next week that I'll be recording with her. So I'm sure if you're on my email list, you'll be getting information about that, and also social media. So be sure and check all of that out. Also, before you go, I'd love for you to check out the Google Workspace for Therapists course. Again, you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course. Haven't changed the URL yet, but the course is still there. You can still get it at its original price, and also get the updates as they are, as I put those in the course, at the original price. But once I get all the updates in place, the price will go up. So take advantage of it. And like I said earlier, I've had hundreds of people to sign up for the course, and the feedback I get is that it's really helpful in helping them learn how to create a platform that is HIPAA secure and really can help them running all of their practice. And also be sure and check out our sponsor for the podcast, Therapynotes, therapynotes.com. They are the leading electronic health record system for private practices in the mental health space. They're who I use in my practice. They have a patient portal that is second to none, and also have telehealth available through the portal with their service. And if you use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, you can try them out for 2 months for free. So it's a win-win situation. So be sure and check them out, therapynotes.com. And so I'm glad that you've joined me for the podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of the other podcatchers out there. We're in most places now. So be sure and subscribe and leave us a rating. That just helps boost us with things. And so I hope that you'll join me again for the podcast and future upcoming episodes. I've got a lot of great stuff coming. I was just looking back over my list of episodes that we've got planned, and got some exciting stuff coming. So be sure and check that out. And also be sure and go over and subscribe to my email list, and you can just go to practiceoftherapy.com. And if you'll get the free private practice startup guide, that'll put you on the list, and you can get all the updates and specials and everything that comes out in the future with the Practice of Therapy podcast. So take care, folks. Have a great rest of your week or weekend whenever you might be listening to this. Take care, folks. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.